Over the last 40 years, we've had lots of different types of discrimination legislation that's come from either this country or directly from Europe, which has meant we've had to pass different types of legislation to protect people against things which are unfair. We started back in 1970 with equal pay, and we've gone right the way through, but there's all different individual types of legislation which aren't dealt with in exactly the same way. And the Equality Act is supposed to simplify and to strengthen the protection that the discrimination law gives to individuals. There's a lot of practical differences that arise as a result of this legislation. I'd like to just signpost perhaps a few of them, which are quite important. Firstly, and perhaps a major change, is that when you're interviewing somebody for a job, you now must not ask them any health-related questions until you've offered them the job. So you can't make a decision based upon their health. If you do that, you're going to face a discrimination claim, and it's also will be a claim whereby, I'm afraid to say, the individuals will have a much stronger case because the tribunal will start on the basis that the claim is proved and you've got to prove otherwise. We then got changes in relation to discrimination generally, because what had happened in the past, quite often the person who's complaining about discrimination had to suffer some form of condition themselves, whether it be based on their sex, whether it be based on race, based on disability. This legislation has now extended that further across the board, so it can be the fact that you perhaps may have responsibility for caring for somebody who's disabled. You may not have the protected characteristic as it's known, but because you've been subjected to a detriment because of somebody that you know or associated with, then that again is a discrimination claim, which is a massive change from where we were previously. We've also got a huge change in connection with an employer's liability on harassment, and particularly by third parties. So if you've got somebody who you have no control over, who comes into your workplace and harasses on the grounds of discrimination one of your employees, and they complain to you, and they've complained to you on 2 separate occasions, even though you've got no control whatsoever over that third party, unless you've taken steps to stop this going on, you will again be responsible for a claim for discrimination and be liable to significant damages. And finally, it's a bit of a long shot, it's uncertain at the moment, but when the last government came forward, they wanted clear openness in connection with pay, so that, and even in the private sector, the details of what's known as the gender pay gap between men and women needed to be published, and they were going to make regulations about this. And that's very much still on the books. The Conservative government have said in their manifesto that they were going to outlaw regulations that were proposed. But at the moment, we just don't know. And it may well be that private sector employers may face serious equal pay claims if they don't pursue a policy of true equality. The Equality Act is a complex piece of legislation. It's 251 pages long. We're expecting hundreds of pages of notes of guidance and codes of practice coming from it. Be aware that discrimination is not going to be an issue that goes away. You need, as an employer, to address it, embrace it, and make sure you don't fall foul of it. Take some advice.
Very interesting. Yeah, it's very informative.
I find it really useful because I think as HR practitioners you tend to be very lonely in an organisation because you're one person in an organisation. So it's been great because you've been able to mix with other HR practitioners, and let's face it, HR, it's the same in every organisation, it's just the context that's different.
Very interesting in terms of sort of reinforcing existing knowledge about discrimination law and getting a far greater insight into how the changes in legislation are actually going to affect Preston City Council as an authority or as an employer.
Yeah, finding it really interesting. Yeah, I'm really glad that we've come.
There's always something that you wouldn't even dream of, you know, and it gives you good pointers if you've got an issue at work.
Yes, it was useful to me, and lovely lunch, courtesy of Forbes.
I see the employment team at Forbes as my comfort blanket, and I come here to work with them, so I do find it very beneficial.
I definitely recommend it. I mean, we attend the Forbes events on a regular basis and we always find them kind of very informative and kind of stimulating, and we take them back to the workplace, and I'll now cascade this to the relevant teams.